Welcome to YouTube, Christoph. Hey, everybody. My name is Andy Boyne from Chainlink Labs. I'm here with Christoph Mussenbrock from Etherisc. We're going to be talking about Etherisc, flight delay, flight insurance, about Chainlink, about the integration, their recent launch, and all sorts of other things. Where I am, I'm having a severe winter storm. And so if people are flying out from my location, they desperately need some of this new flight delay insurance. How are you doing, Christoph?
Great, thank you for having me. And yeah, it's a pleasure for me to answer all the questions of your community, our community, which has a big overlap, I think. And so it's great to be here.
Yeah, Chainlink community loves to see real use cases in production, helping people.
Yes.
Permissionless insurance, fantastic use case. And Sergey and many of the people at Chainlink Labs have been talking about parametric insurance for a long time. Awesome example of this. I've seen hackathon versions of parametric insurance use cases for a
I
couple
know.
of years now, and now here we have it. It's live. We can go to it. So we'll go and check it out. I won't be buying insurance today. I already told Christoph because I don't have a flight coming up soon.
If you run out of money, that's a pity, but
yeah, the
we
ETH
try to
wallet that I
make it
have
cheap.
here is the wallet that I have here is not well funded, so I won't be getting anything. But that's okay. So yeah, as Christoph said, happy to answer questions. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We'll be happy to talk to you. We've got a bunch of people joining. So hey, everybody who just joined, I'm Andy. This is Christoph from Etherisc. We're going to be talking about flight delay insurance, about Etherisc, about Chainlink as well. Hey, Oscar, I see your comments in the YouTube, so feel free to drop encouraging notes or questions down there. All right, well, with that, I think we've got a bunch of people who have come in now, so it is good for us to go ahead and get officially started. Are you ready, Christoph?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Go. Welcome to Chainlink Live YouTube Q&A with Etherisc. I've got Christoph Mussenbrock here. I'm Andy Boyne from Chainlink Labs, and we're going to have a conversation about flight delay, their new insurance product, about Etherisc, and of course about how Chainlink fits into that. Christoph, why don't you get us started? Tell us about Etherisc first, give us a little overview, and then dive into flight delay, this recent launch that you guys have that's really exciting.
Yeah, let me just introduce myself, Christoph Mussenbrock. I'm one of the founders of Etherisc. We started 5 years ago with exactly the same product, FlightDelay. That was our first prototype. We coded it in my summer holidays in some nights, and it was very basic. It was one single smart contract, and but it worked. And so we started at DEF CON 2 in 2016. We got a lot of good feedback, and we decided to make a real business out of it. And then, of course, we dive into all these problems around insurance, regulations, and legal stuff, and building a company. And so building it in a way which is really decentralized. So we started the foundation, and we created a token, and we had an ICO in 2018, and since then we have been building a generic platform. So that was our idea from the start, that we do not build a single product, but we build a platform where anybody can build insurance products and launch them, find capital, find investors, find customers, and also oracles. And that was a point where we got in contact with Chainlink. And Chainlink has been on our radar from the beginning, but I think the first real collaboration with Chainlink was about 2 years ago, when we started also a small prototype with something like flight delay, and that got a huge resonance also in the Chainlink community. And so that encouraged us also to work more together. And also for all our other products, crop insurance, we always talk with Chainlink. Chainlink also gave us a little grant to build this crop insurance product. So there's a lot of collaboration going on, and I think the best times are still coming, and so we are happy to talk about potential perspectives in the space here.
I love talking and writing and working with Etherisc and insurance products in general, parametric insurance, because it is such a clear use case for smart contracts. Like it just makes so much sense when you kind of understand how insurance works and how much human review process and auditing it goes on behind the scenes. That's very inefficient. It's necessary for the industry, but when you can automate these processes and just rely on good data and make things automated and pay out, it makes things cheaper for everybody in the process, not just for the customers, but for the insurance providers as well. It's a really clear use case. So with that in mind, take us through FlightDelay. Like, what is this product specifically, so people can get their heads around it, and then we'll talk a little bit about how this type of insurance is different from traditional types.
Exactly. Yeah. So FlightDelay is actually a typical parametric insurance product. The risk what we insure is the risk of a flight being delayed. So you book a flight and you have some business meetings, you book a hotel, and then your flight is delayed. You have a loss because you have economical expenses. You need to book a different hotel. You have a car rental, what you have to cancel. You have a business meeting not taking place. So there is a lot of economic loss what you actually experience when you have a flight delay. Maybe it does not apply if you're just doing a holiday flight or something where you don't care if you spend some hours on the airport. But even in this case, probably it makes a lot of annoyance if you do not reach your connecting flight or whatever. Yeah? So that's a typical risk. And so we create an insurance against this risk. So you receive a payout. And the special thing is that the full process is automated. So there is neither any human interaction, and there is also nothing what can interfere with the whole process. So when we started, we analyzed the whole insurance landscape, and we found out that there is one big problem in insurance generally, and this is the trust problem. Yeah. So typically there is an asymmetry. You are a single guy or family, and you buy an insurance product, and your partner is a huge insurance company with billions of funds and investors, and these investors have only one interest: to make as much profit as possible. So how do they make profit? They take it from your premiums, and so they try to take as much from your premium what is possible. So there is this asymmetry, and as a single insurance customer, you have no power, no lobby, and you just need to buy it because you have no alternative. And that is something what we try to change. And we make the whole process transparent. So from the beginning, the customer can see what's happening. It's on a public blockchain. The whole process, all data is available on blockchain. You can follow it, you can analyze it. And so also for making a decision, if you think if this product is fair, if the pricing is fair, that you can check beforehand. Yeah, and the full calculation is transparently coded in the smart contract, so everybody can check what is the margin. And yes, also in our product there is a margin. Yeah, we have to pay our salaries, we have to pay the oracles, we have to pay the data provider, we have to pay for developers and so on. So of course there is a margin in the premium. Yeah, the product is not for free, but we make it transparent so everybody can decide, is this a fair offering or is it unfair? And that is, I think, the big game changer here, that everything is open and transparent. And after you buy your contract, nobody can interfere with it because it's an autonomous smart contract. And also the data source by Chainlink, there is nobody in theory who could interfere because the data is taken from independent sources by a decentralized Oracle network. Of course, I must admit, and I think we all know that this is the vision, and in practice we are still have some steps to go. Yeah, because for example, currently there is only one data provider. Yeah, we need to trust this data provider, but we have good reasons why we can trust him. I can explain later on why that is the case. And so there are some compromises which we need to make because there is simply no alternative. But we can approach our vision as much as possible. And I think as time goes by, we come closer and closer to our final goal to provide a fully decentralized insurance model.
Yeah, when I hear there's compromises and we're working towards things, to me that's business opportunity, business opportunity, business opportunity for anybody
Absolutely.
in this chat, any developer or entrepreneur. Yeah. Find a data provider, become a good data provider, and support this. There are resources out there who will help you make this happen. So so that's the first thing I think of with that. I have access to insurance. I have insurance. I'm quite fortunate. But one of the issues that we have, like, we had some damage to our house a couple of years ago, and the contractor came out and he does an evaluation. Like, okay, it's going to cost this much. Do you want to file it with your insurance? And we're like, yeah, of course, we have insurance. That's what we have it for. And he said, hold on. Now, if you file it with your insurance, they'll track that, and they track how many times you make a claim. And suddenly, we're in this game of, what do we do? Do we make a claim because if we need something later, it could change our premiums and adjust for that. Gamesmanship just goes out the window with the smart contract. There's nobody evaluating. It's not whether or not I want to make a claim. I have a policy. If the policy is triggered, the claim pays out. Like the end, there's no human in the cycle. It's a very different perspective, and how the industry has built itself given big data and scale over the past 20, 30 years.
Exactly, yeah. And that is, I think, really game changing. It makes also a big difference because that does not only apply for customers. Yeah, the customer has now the transparency. He can make a decision, an informed decision, and he does not buy a black box like in traditional insurance. On the other side, the same applies for investors. Yeah, for an investor, currently it's not possible to invest in an insurance product. You can buy a so-called ILS, an insurance-linked security, yeah, but the entry barrier for entering this market of insurance investments, you are you have tickets of $10 to $20 million, yeah. So it's nothing what a typical customer can do. And part of our vision is also that anybody can invest in an insurance product, that he can buy into such a product by supplying capital to a so-called risk pool. The risk pool is actually the fund which backs the product and where the claims are paid from. And of course, the product is always calculated in a way that in total, in the average, the investors make a decent profit. Yeah? And that's a reward for locking their capital. That's a reward for taking the risk, because of course there is a certain chance that if everything goes wrong, then they may lose some or even all of their money. That's the typical investor risk, and so you need some compensation, and so you pay the investors for providing their capital, and that is also part of our platform. Yeah, so
that's really interesting. I wasn't.
Exactly.
I just didn't put together the pieces that it is also a decentralized pooling for these pools, these insurance pools, and that's really fascinating. Different financial instrument. You want to diversify into many different things. Insurance is one of them, right? You can provide insurance, and for something that's relatively low risk, that has a low frequency of happening, your funds they're going to work. They're going to do things in the pool, and then when they do pay out, you're paid out people who are your customers. Like it feels good. It could feel good in many cases to pay people what they've done as well. So that's just a really interesting dynamic, financial dynamic I'm not exposed to at all. So really interesting. I wanted to pop up the Etherisc here. I'm going to share my screen because I do have the Etherisc page right here. One moment. Here we go. Or this is the FlightDelay. And so this is the basic page right here where you can go and get protection. I've got MetaMask up, and so I'm going to go ahead and connect my wallet to MetaMask. I'm not sure if you guys can see that on the screen share. I'm connecting now. And I got to switch to XDAI. Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Gnosis chain by now, because Gnosis has actually made a deal with the XDAI people, and so the new name is Gnosis chain, but actually it's the same chain. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll get updated, and so now my wallet. Here's my wallet. If you're unfamiliar with connecting wallets in Web3, now my wallet is connected up here, and now I can go in and I can select an airline. Let's do Air India, and I'm just adding in flight numbers.
Hopefully, you have a flight.
Yeah. No flights available, but if we can get a flight available,
I can tell you a number. Let's take Lufthansa, a German, of course, LH, and then 117, and any date. So exactly, maybe just another date.
Let's try closer.
Okay.
It was for a moment.
Funny. Strange. Let me check.
Well, but you can go on and look for your flights, and it'll pop open, and we can take a look there and see how those work. So I just wanted to show that wallet connection, show how people select those airlines, flight numbers.
Maybe they changed the. I will see. Have some other favorite flights.
Just cycle through some numbers here. I don't have the flight numbers offhand. Oh, there was one. It popped up for a moment, but it's having some challenges.
Okay, you need to find a combination of flight and flight number which works.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up before this and couldn't find it, so I couldn't figure out the exact one. So,
okay, take Air France.
All right, Air France.
101.
101. And any day.
Okay. I will check during.
All right, we'll look that up.
So.
Then they'll be listed, and you'll be able to buy insurance there.
Yeah.
We've got some good questions from the audience as well, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit. We will get to your questions. So from the audience, just a reminder. Hi, I'm Andy from Chainlink Labs. We're talking to Christoph from Etherisc about the FlightDelay product, about parametric insurance. We're going to get into that as well. Do see some good questions about L2s and ETH fees. We'll talk about that in a moment. Talk a little bit about the Chainlink connection. So what is it that is coming from Chainlink to trigger this smart contract? It's just whether or not a given flight number has been delayed. Where does that come from, and how does that work?
Sorry, I didn't, the last part of the question again.
The data that is coming from Chainlink, like where does it come from? It comes through Chainlink and then it settles.
Okay, so
what is that?
Yeah, what I mentioned already is we have a single data source, which is FlightStats. FlightStats is a large US data provider. It's part of Ethereum, which is collecting all type of data, and they have real-time data of all business flights worldwide. So that's where we get all the data from. We can all request the historical data, and we can also request real-time data of actual flights and historical flights. So we have actually two endpoints what we use. We use, first of all, the historical data for pricing. We have so-called flight ratings, and this information contains all the delays of the last 3 months or 6 months, depending on the flight. And based on this data, we can calculate the risk of a flight. And so for each flight, we make an individual calculation, and the calculation will give an individual payout for the fixed premium. In our case, the premium is always fixed. It's $15 or XDAI, which is the same. And then we calculate the payout, and the payout is higher for a flight which is typically with only a small.
I found an example one. I got it. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. So you see here in the second line, you have 4.84 probability. And this is taken from the historical data. Yeah. So obviously this flight has a certain probability. And so the payout, maybe you zoom out of it, then you see the payout is 123 XDAI, which is only a small part of the maximum payout, which would be $750. Yeah. So because the delay is pretty high, and also the probability of a canceled flight is pretty high, the payout is comparably low. Yeah. So, there are other flights, for example, typically domestic flights have a much lower probability of delay. And so exactly, you have seen it. There you have 5% and much higher payout of 384 XDAI. So this is what we do. This is real-time pricing based on real-time data, based on a data source from FlightStats. And now this is, of course, off-chain. Yeah. So what we are seeing here is just the front end, and we are directly talking to an API and getting the probabilities. But when we purchase protection now, and so if you click that bottom and you pay, of course, it won't work because you have not enough insufficient funds.
Not today.
So maybe I will send you some bucks so you can do it.
That's okay.
Actually, but if you would purchase this, then what happens? Yeah, so we send a transaction to our smart contract system. The transaction contains the flight data, the arrival and the departure date, and of course flight number and so on, and your wallet number and everything. Then the smart contract triggers a transaction to the Chainlink Oracle, and then we do the whole pricing again. Yeah, so we are not just believing that we have flight information from the flight stats here, but the smart contract itself repeats the calculation. It checks if the calculated payout is the same if we directly ask the Oracle. And that is where Chainlink comes in, because we talk to a Chainlink Oracle. Chainlink Oracle talks to FlightStats, and then FlightStats returns the data. Chainlink returns it to our smart contract. Smart contract does a calculation, and then only if the calculation of the smart contract gives the same result as what we have seen here, then the transaction will succeed. And again, after, for example, here in this case, it's tomorrow. It won't work because we need 14 days before because we can accept a policy. Otherwise, it would be easy to game this. Yeah, for example, if I already know that there is a bad weather condition in Munich, then I could easily buy a policy and cash out. Yeah, so we need 14 days, so it's more or less impossible to game the whole system. But in 14 days, then we have a scheduled transaction where we also use a Chainlink functionality. This is a Chainlink alarm clock, and we put the alarm clock and we trigger it in 14 days. The alarm clock will then trigger our smart contract. The smart contract will trigger the Chainlink Oracle. Chainlink Oracle asks the FlightStats API, and so on. And then we get the actual delay of the flight, and we calculate the payout. And the calculation of the payout is just based on the information what we have stored in the policy. So here, this payout would be stored in the smart contract, and so it's immutable. Yeah, so nobody can change this payout afterwards. And so if there is a delay, then you are guaranteed to get this payout. And so there is nobody who can just fiddle around with your payouts, which would be the case with an insurance company. And now you could ask, what happens if there is not enough funding in the smart contract, because the funding are taken from the smart contract. They are not taken from a bank account, but the funds are taken from the smart contract itself, or in our case, smart contract, but in the GIF, we have a so-called risk pool, and the risk pool is a smart contract which actually manages the funds. So again, we only sell policies if we already can guarantee that the funding is sufficient. So currently, we are 100% collateralized. That's the tech speak for we can guarantee that there is enough funding. And so when the customers clicks on purchase, there is already the guarantee that the payout will be possible. Otherwise, we would not accept the policy. Yeah, if the funding would go down because we have many payouts, or there are no investors who are willing to provide funding, then we would actually stop selling policies because we cannot guarantee. Yeah, and and this is something what we can maybe come afterwards in more detail on this risk pools and how that works and how this is in control.
Are funds in the risk pool, are those farming, or like are they out doing money markets and Aave or whatever, something like that, or are they static right now, or are they just held as collateral?
Currently they are static, but the idea is, of course, that if the risk pool gets bigger, then we also invest the money and let it work. But on the other side, and that is very parallel to traditional insurance, we need to make sure that we always have enough funding. Yeah? So we cannot invest in high risk staking protocols, for example. Yeah. So that would give us a nice revenue, but on the other side, we would lose the funds. And so as an insurance company, it's part of our reputation that we are always able to pay out. And actually, we can only invest in low risk protocols, and but still, it's better than nothing. And so I think this is also something what we do not prescribe. Yeah? So our platform does not make any restrictions on how you build your risk pools. Yeah, in the same way, like we do not control how you build your products, we do not control how you build your risk pools. And if you have creative ideas how you want to invest your money, then you can build a risk pool. The only thing what you need is to find a product and customers who are willing to use your risk pool. And that's also what we think is new, that actually the customer can check what happens with my money. Yeah? And maybe there is some risk pool which is progressive and which invests in green energy, for example. Yeah? And maybe this product will attract more customers because the money is invested in green energy, which is maybe interesting for some people. And so the platform shall give the creators all their freedom to create attractive products and to create innovative investment schemes and so on. So that's nothing what we prescribe. Yeah? We give only the flexibility and the infrastructure, but we expect that many people are coming on the platform and build their own creative solutions on top of it.
So this idea of a platform and parametric insurance, there's so many use cases. I've seen flight delay makes a lot of sense. I've seen shipping insurance with water levels for marine shipping. If the water gets too high, it doesn't work. If it gets too low, it doesn't work. If it's just right, no problem. We've seen crop insurance based on is it rainfall data that you guys were using? What are some of these others, as you are a platform and you're expecting people to come and build on this, what are some other parametric use cases that you're excited about that we can just start thinking about as examples?
Exactly. Yeah, so in general, everything climate, all climate related risks are perfect for parametric insurance. And there are lots of climate risks which are coming because of climate change. Yeah? For example, rainfall is one example, hurricane, heavy weather, event insurance. Yeah, so you have an open air concert or event, and so if there is a heavy weather, then you need to cancel the event and you pay back your tickets and so on. You can build an event insurance around this. So all kind of weather-related or climate-related risks. It's incredible what you can do. And
on the climate industry, the data there is so rich for 40 years, right? There's been sensors been placed around the world, so that's
and there is a huge public interest in climate data. So every week there is a new satellite collecting even better data, and it's for example the European community. I'm coming from Europe, so that's where I have the best knowledge about. European community entertains a number of one of the best climate data satellites. It's called Copernicus, and this data is open source, so everybody can use it for free. And of course, if you dive more into the details, then you know the raw data is sometimes not the end of the story. You need to pre-process it. You need to we have outliers, and you need to pre-process the data. So there are specialists which are working on this data, but still, the data itself is open source. It's available in high quality. You have a granularity of climate data, which is unprecedented today. So for Africa, we have on our current project in Acre Africa, we have a 10 × 10 kilometer grid. So the smallest area is a grid is a square of 10 × 10 kilometers. But there are other satellites which have 5 or 2 or 1 kilometer. So that's astonishing what can be done. And so for all over Africa, it's not only for one country, but all over Africa. You have the complete climate of Africa on a 1 kilometer grid, and that's incredible. And so that is only the beginning of the story. And I think that there is a lot of things going on, and what we are doing is the first small step in an industry which is just emerging. And so when we started 5 years ago, parametric insurance was a no-go for most insurance companies, because in the traditional insurance space, the claim is always linked to the proof of loss. So parametric insurance works completely different. You do not need a proof of loss, which can be very complicated and inefficient, because you need to check it. You have experts, you need proofs, and need to check it, and so on. Parametric insurance works different, because you just say, okay, if there is a rainfall, or if there is a certain climate in a certain region, then we know from history that there is a loss, and we can even calculate the loss for some digit after the decimal point. So we do not need a proof of loss, but we just need the data, and this is completely different. And for the traditional insurance, that is a complete change in their thinking, because they are used. There is a customer, the customer files a claim, then there comes the expert, and then the expert checks all the documents. And
well, they're in the business. They have to check against fraud, right? That is the business model. Is they are responsible to their investors and their pools to make sure that they are not defrauded. This is a different model where fraud, it doesn't matter. It's based on the data feed itself, not on the loss. That's just a different framing. That's really fascinating.
But it's very difficult to fraud an open source data source, which is used by thousands of applications. And so I think public available data from satellites is the best data source you can get, because the correctness of the data is typically ensured by large bodies like governments or NGOs or the NASA or whoever. Large authorities where you can, of course, you need to trust them as well, but there is a huge public interest, and so should they fiddle around with the data, that would come up very quickly. And also it's difficult to modify this data in a way which benefits everybody. So if you modify the data, then maybe some people will win, but others will lose. And so there is a strong incentive not to deal with this data, and
as you said, a new satellite goes up so often, and the data is getting better and better. There's better triangulation. There's more people who are
and of
observing
course,
and cleaning this data.
We hope is, and that is also, I think, the Chainlink model. Don't use a single data source. Use many data sources, independent data sources, and so the whole Chainlink idea is to create a decentralized network of independent data sources where it's very difficult to modify the data in a way which would damage a certain participant of this whole model. So,
Christoph,
that's what
I just looked at our questions. I didn't ask you any of them because we just had a fantastic conversation. In the interest of time, thank you all so much for watching and bringing your questions as well. Give us a little peek. What is on the roadmap in the coming months for Etherisc, for FlightDelay, for whatever is next, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, so I think the most important part on the roadmap is to bring out staking, which we have conceptually, but it's not running live, for example, with FlightDelay. So that will be one of the next steps. And people in our community have already asked, so when will it come? And I know from Chainlink that staking is something which cannot be done in a few days and needs a lot of experiments. We have worked on this since the full last year, and the code itself is not the problem. So it's only a few lines of code, but to write or to develop a system which is sound and which cannot be frauded or which cannot be game theoretically exploited, that is very difficult. And so we are working a lot of this and experimenting with different models. This week we will publish the first part of a new tutorial on this. So we will explain how the basic concepts work, and everybody who's interested, we have already published a paper on this, the staking model of Etherisc, where we have outlined some of the fundamental concepts of staking. But in the course of the year, hopefully in the first or second quarter, we will go live with staking. First for a single product like FlightDelay or crop insurance. But the nice thing with risk pools is you can actually stack them. Yeah, you can have, for example, underlying risk pools for FlightDelay, crop insurance, and then you can have a second layer. Yeah, and the second layer takes the excessive risks from the underlying products. For example, the risk pool of FlightDelay would cover the typical losses of a flight during a month. But there are situations where you could have excessive losses. For example, a hurricane will delay a lot of flights, or there is a volcano in Indonesia or whatever. So we could have events. Of course, we try to avoid this by predicting these events, but there could be black swan events, which would cause a lot of losses. And then the risk pool of the product itself would be depleted. And then we, as soon as we have a certain trigger in the fund of this contract, of this risk pool, then it would fall back to the next level. Yeah, so something like a reinsurance risk pool. And and the idea is that different products have different risk profiles. Mm-hmm. So if there is a black swan event in FlightDelay, it's very unlikely that we have a black swan event in crop insurance at the same time. And so that is a reinsurance principle, that different products will diversify the risk, and by creating a so-called reinsurance risk pool as a layer on top, we can equal out the individual excessive risks for the underlying products. And the idea is that in this year we will start and bootstrap a large reinsurance pool of something like maybe 50 million DIP tokens. Yeah, so it's in absolute amounts, it's maybe not that much, but I think for our community, it's a big step. And we will connect crop insurance and FlightDelay to this reinsurance pool. And then we have actually the full system of reinsurance, insurance, risk pools, products, and together in our framework. And so then we would have a complete system, something like what Elon Musk with his Starship, the first Starship, which would be launched, that would be the large risk pool for Etherisc, and maybe we can align with the timing with Elon.
All right. Christoph, really exciting. So many fascinating ideas you've thrown at me. My brain, I'm taking notes over here and doing it as well. So I appreciate your time and your insights so much. I appreciate you and your team's work on this. Like, as I said before, people at Chainlink love to talk about Etherisc and Parametric smart contracts because it's such a clear use case for smart contracts. And I very much appreciate your time, the community who's come and given their questions as well. Christoph, let's talk again. We'll do an update as Etherisc continues to build products and expand the platform. Does that sound all right?
Absolutely, and I'm happy to answer any questions which have come up in the channel also in the next few days. Just use our Telegram channel. I think the links are somehow in the description of the AMA, and so we are happy to answer any questions. And it was a pleasure to be here, and hopefully we can continue with this maybe in some months, and
that sounds
see where we go.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Christoph. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Everyone, thank you for your comments. All of the information for joining the Etherisc communities is down in the description. Please join those. Take your questions, take your friends' questions. Go find insurance professionals that you know and direct them to the Etherisc properties so that they can start getting exposure to this new way of dealing with insurance and parametric insurance and all this cool stuff. If you've got questions about Chainlink, follow all the Chainlink links as well. We've got Twitters and Discords and the website and plenty of information about there if you want any information about what Chainlink does, how it works. Again, my name is Andy Boyan. We do these sessions, Chainlink live sessions, about 2 per week. Subscribe, like that button so more people see this content as well. We very much appreciate that. And then I don't know who we have next week, but usually we do them on Mondays and Tuesdays. We had a little bit of a change this week. Let me see if I got people. I don't know who I have booked next Monday and Tuesday, but we'll have a couple other projects. Often we talk to NFT projects and gaming projects, as well as DeFi projects, insurance when we're lucky and get something cool like Etherisc that's a little more unique. But please like and subscribe and come back to these. You can get information and notifications about these on smart_contract on Twitter. We announce these. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to. I'm at Andy Boyan. I tweet Chainlinky stuff sometimes, and also sometimes just dumb jokes. Feel free to do that. I appreciate your participation, your comments, and I will see you all next time on Chainlink Live. Thanks.